The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
The king of late night played by the clown prince of later night. Will all this showbiz royalty inspire the king of pop maybe to moonwalk across the courtroom? Hello, I'm James Curtis. Welcome to E's coverage of the Michael Jackson trial. First, Jay Leno arrived outside the Santa Maria courthouse smiling and shaking hands. A few minutes later, Jackson and his entourage took the same short walk into courtroom drama. Now, you know that Leno has gotten a lot of laughs out of this case on his own show, so hopefully he'll enjoy seeing fellow talk show host Jimmy Kimmel playing him on our exclusive reenactments. Here's what Leno told the jurors, according to the courtroom transcripts.
Good morning, Mr. Leno.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. Mr. Leno, in your work, do you deal with children's organizations?
Yes, quite a bit.
And what do you do?
There are groups like Phone Friends, Make-A-Wish. You get phone calls, children in the hospital, could you give them a call? And they ask you questions about, did you meet Britney Spears, whatever it might be. But usually that type of thing. It's usually kids that are maybe lonely or sick or something, and they watch TV or they watch it late at night, and you try to cheer them up. And it usually goes through, as I said, organizations like Phone Friends and Make-A-Wish.
Oh, boy. Next. Isn't it pretty near impossible to get a superstar like Jay Leno on the telephone?
At times, do people who want to reach you get a hold of you directly?
Yes.
And how does that happen?
They just call me. I'm pretty accessible. I pick up the phone. I go, "Hi, this is Jay." And they go, "No, it's not." And I go, "Yes, it is." And I spend 10 minutes convincing them it is me. But, yeah.
Will they call the studio to reach you directly?
Yes, and I'll probably get a lot more calls after this. My phone will be ringing tomorrow. Thank you for that.
If they call the studio, can they get right to you, or do they go
Sometimes they can get right to me. Actually, yeah, they can. Up until today, they could get right to me. Until just a few minutes ago, you could reach me quite easily.
All right, Jay Leno or Jimmy Kimmel doing Jay Leno doing stand-up in the Santa Maria courthouse.
Well, also doing it here. We got the pleasure and the privilege of watching Jimmy Kimmel act out this role, and he has it down, right down to the head shake.
Oh, and the lisp and everything.
The chin is really fabulous.
Really
but the
great.
reality is this. I was curious how the three of us, when we watched Jimmy Kimmel today playing Jay Leno, in action, that we were really titillated. We were excited, and it was a celebrity in our midst. So you know that the jury has even a greater reaction, because this is a jury trial. It's about very important matters, and Jay Leno walked in their courtroom.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Jay Leno is a real celebrity, and he's also a legitimate witness in this case. It's not like he's a celebrity for celebrity's sake. He's a legitimate witness, and that's why he's there.
And isn't that really the downside, though, that the defense, in calling all of these stars, we harken back to the pre-trial publicity where we heard about Barbra Streisand and all these other names. Would they be just trotted in for the sake of having them on the stand to lend some help to their friend, or did they have really something to say?
Well, I think Sean's point is well taken. In this particular case, when this witness comes to testify, Jay Leno does have facts to add to the case. He's not there for the glitz. And I think it is true on both sides that the celebrities that they have had are there as fact witnesses.
And it was a good idea, I think, for them not to trot all those celebrities in for the sake of celebrity.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, along that line, we hear that the defense is indeed cutting its witness list down. So we'll see where that leads. But let's get into Jay Leno's affect on the stand. We were laughing at Jimmy Kimmel, I can do this, his portrayal of Jay Leno on the stand. But indeed, it was a lighthearted moment, at least at the outset in that testimony. How does that affect the seriousness of these proceedings?
Well, I think that it's probably lighthearted in the courtroom, too. Jay Leno is a comedian. He's an affable guy. He's someone who's in your living room. He's in your bedroom late at night. And here this is the kind of guy he is. And what he says is very intriguing. Come and get me. You want to talk to me? Pick up the phone. I answer my phone, which of course gives Gavin and his mom the ability to get to Leno, and it's not suspicious.
And of course, the reason he's a witness in this case is because he's a comedian, and Gavin wanted to be a comedian. So it all makes perfect sense.
Well, it all makes perfect sense from the standpoint of perhaps Gavin's initial interest, but is there something more sinister lurking at the heart of this trial? And right now, we get to that heart, right to the heart of the matter.
Do you remember a couple of years ago receiving a call from a child named Gavin?
Yes.
And approximately when did that happen?
Let's see, it's quite a few years ago. I guess 2000 maybe.
And was it your understanding that Gavin had cancer?
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I was told.
Did you ever talk to Gavin's mother?
I believe I did. The circumstance, I'd gotten a number of calls, and there were ways to sort of legitimize this, and I'd gotten these calls, and I called the hospital. I was put through the room. I believe I spoke to Gavin, and I think I spoke to possibly his brother, and I think I spoke to his mother. It's a little confusing because these kind of conversations do tend to run together.
Yeah, you can only imagine. Next, defense attorney Tom Mesereau tries to clarify exactly which family members spoke with the legendary comedian.
Now, how did you learn about Gavin?
I got a number of voicemails from him. That's how I was made aware.
Okay, and did the voicemails give you a number to call the hospital?
I'm not sure if the voicemails gave me the number or if I got the number from Louise, but somehow I obtained the number. I can't be sure on that point.
And you've indicated, Mr. Leno, you think you talked to Gavin's mother, right?
I think so, yes.
Okay, and do you recall whether she called you or you called her?
No, I called the hospital room. I'd gotten a number of voicemails from the child, and I called the hospital room.
Now, Louise, of course, being Louise Palanker, who we heard from earlier in the trial. And is it just coincidence that, although Jay Leno will ultimately say that that money issue doesn't come across as the defense would have it, but immediately on the heels of that, Louise Palanker, 2 checks for 10 grand to these folks.
Yes, but she says she wanted to do that.
Well, but how does that play into the defense theory, though, Sean?
I don't know, but let me tell you what's important about this. What's important is that Jay Leno directly contradicts the testimony of Janet, who says she never talked to Jay Leno. And what possible reason could Jay Leno have to lie about this?
Well, he does say, though, he says that he thinks he talked to her. And you've indicated, Mr. Leno, you think you talked to Gavin's mother, right? I think so, yes. So you have kind of a little bit wishy-washy answer against Janet's, I never talked to him.
And Gavin apparently says he never talked to him.
Correct.
But now we know from this little bit of testimony, that's not true either.
Right, contradicts Gavin as well. So this is a very important witness, and as we'll see, he brings up that he didn't feel quite comfortable when talking to Gavin, which is, of course, of critical importance to the defense.
Yes, but.
Yes,
There's
but.
a but.
Go ahead.
Well, there's a big but, because although he didn't feel comfortable, he doesn't say what Tom Mesereau said he was going to say, that Jay Leno does not come forth and say they asked him for money. Yes, he says he was suspicious. Yes, he says, as we will hear, that the child was overly effusive and more adult, so he sounded scripted. But it doesn't go as far as Mesereau said it would go.
And that's a big problem for the defense, isn't it?
That is a big problem for the defense. I agree.
And let's be clear, Sean, and let's be fair. We beat up on the prosecutors mightily when they didn't deliver on what they said the evidence would be.
Yes.
We got to do the same now for the defense.
Yes, I still, though, think that Jay Leno is an excellent witness for the defense. He contradicts 2 of the prosecution's key witnesses.
Well, we're going to see how it all plays out, folks, because what you say in the beginning, what actually happens, is often different. When we return, is Jay Leno really the secret identity for a Caped Crusader? Stay with us.
The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back. Jay Leno began receiving calls from Gavin years before the young cancer victim ever accused Michael Jackson of committing any bad acts. But from the beginning, Leno was a little puzzled by the style and tone of the voicemail messages that young Gavin left for him. Even the hero worship seemed a bit odd to the talk show host. Here's what the jurors heard according to the courtroom transcripts.
Do you recall what Gavin said to you?
The conversation in the hospital or any of the voicemails?
Well, let's start with the voicemails.
Okay, the voicemails I got were, oh, I'm a big fan, you're the greatest. Overly effusive for a 12-year-old. Most of the time when you talk to children, they talk like, hi, how you doing? Good to see you. I mean, you kind of have to pull it out of them. Hi, how you feeling? Good, hi. I mean, you're talking to a kid. And this sounded very adult-like conversation, I thought. It just, perked my interest at the time.
When you say overly effusive, what do you mean?
Jay Leno, you're the greatest. I think you're wonderful. You're my hero. This type of thing, which seemed a little odd to me at the time with someone so young. Why a comedian in his mid-50s would be, I'm not Batman. You know what I mean? It just seemed a little unusual, but okay.
Oh, Kibble is so good. I can't wait till Leno sees this. Next, what about the accuser's mother, Janet? The defense has made her the focus of its case.
Did you ever get any messages from anyone who claimed to be Gavin's mother?
No, I didn't get any from the mother, just from the child.
Okay, and based on those messages, you then called the hospital?
Called the hospital, and I believe I sent, hat, T-shirts, that type of thing.
Okay, and you spoke to Gavin at the hospital, right?
Again, to the best of my knowledge, I did. Whether he was groggy or in bed or high, and then I spoke to someone else, and then I believe I spoke to the mother, who seemed very pleased that I called.
Do you recall what the mother said to you?
No, very general, thank you so much, and, my conversation was along the line, our prayers are with you, that type of thing, and if he gets out and he'd like to tour the Tonight Show studios, that type of thing.
Was that the only time you recall speaking to Gavin?
Yes, I believe that is.
And was that the only time you recall speaking to the mother?
Yes, I believe so.
All right, so far, so good for the defense, but of course we haven't gotten to the prosecution's cross-examination yet.
It's so good for the prosecution, too. I mean, it's innocuous conversation. I understand she says she didn't talk to him. I understand Gavin says he didn't talk to him. But he says he's having one of those, as he says, normal conversations for him, which he has with people. How you doing? How's this? Maybe you want to tour the studio. It may be a non-event. It may be just fine for the prosecution.
This is what I think is important. Jay Leno found it so odd that he called or spoke with Louise Palanker about it.
Yeah.
It was so unusual. And the implication, of course, is that this was the setup. I mean, why would he call and tell somebody about it unless it was that?
Well, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it, I think the prosecution can certainly argue, or the jurors can use their common sense, is that Jay Leno simply says they called and he left voicemail after voicemail after voicemail, and then he's very scripted and he just says, get these people off my back. Louise Palanker knows them. I don't need their calls all the time.
But the idea, though, Rick, and you've got to agree with Sean, at least on this point, overly effusive, sounded very adult-like, seemed a little odd to me. Come on.
No, I agree with that.
Those
but that doesn't mean,
points.
that's not that what Tom Mesereau said was that he was being set up as a mark.
But
there is nothing approaching that.
Okay.
Actually, what he said in his opening is that Mr. Leno has told the Santa Barbara police, quote, something was wrong, they were looking for a mark, it sounded scripted, blah, blah, blah. We haven't yet heard whether or not Jay Leno told the Santa Barbara police that.
And we're going to get to that in just a moment. And as we continue this testimony, Leno brings up a familiar theme.
Okay, at some point, did you complain to Louise Palanker about messages you were getting from Gavin?
It wasn't so much a complaint. I just said to her, what's the story here? This doesn't sound like a 12-year-old. This sounds like an adult person. It seemed, I think the words I used was, it seemed a little scripted in his speech. And then she said to me, that's just the way he is. He wants to be a comic, so he writes everything out before he says it, and then he kind of reads it. And I said, okay, well, that sort of made sense at the time.
Now, does Leno seem to throw the defense a curve?
And after your last conversation with Gavin, did you ever do anything for Gavin?
No, I never sent any money I sent, I think, Tonight Show paraphernalia, hats, T-shirts, pictures. I wasn't asked for any money, nor did I send any.
All right, Sean, now you're on the defensive.
No, I'm not.
No money asked. Let's lay it out nice and plain now. No money solicited. And now we have an explanation for why this young man may have seemed scripted.
Remember, this comes out on direct. Mr. Mesereau brings this out. He knows this. He never made any assertion in opening that they asked him for money. He doesn't say that. He says that Leno thought it seemed bizarre, odd, scripted, and that Mr. Leno told the Santa Barbara police something's wrong, they're looking for a mark.
I don't know, Ricky.
But it's a setup. It is a setup. And the defense, and I'm sure Mr. Mesereau absolutely believes that what was going on with Gavin and his mother, Janet, were that they were out to bilk celebrities one by one by one. And I think that Mr. Mesereau is very forceful about that, and I commend him for his theory of the case. On the other hand, the prosecution says, hey, wait a minute, unless we forget again This child was dying of cancer. There are photos of this child at that stage of his life where you could see the deterioration of an innocent child. And the fact that he writes things out and that it's scripted for him in order to talk to someone of Jay Leno's stature makes perfect sense through Louise Palanker's explanation.
We haven't heard anything like that before. I mean, there are a number of celebrities he's gone to, we've heard about. We've never heard this story about it's scripted, he writes everything out. That seems very convenient to me.
But doesn't the defense have a bit of a danger zone insofar as if they push this idea of this kid trying to bilk this celebrity, that vision, that very vivid vision that Ricky just painted is something that could wipe that whole defense theory out of the window?
Well, see, that's why I think it's important that Mr. Mesereau is the one who asked this question about that, no, they never asked for any money. Mesereau's not trying to suggest it's something that it's not. He's saying exactly what it is. There looks like they're trying to set it up, but he's not saying that it's some
come on. What do you mean he's not
trying
to suggest something that it's
putting
not?
out what it is.
The entire defense theory, is it not, is that this mother, along with this kid, are trying to bilk celebrities. That's exactly what they're after.
And this was his big celebrity.
Yeah.
This was the one who was going to make the point for him. That's certainly how it's been played. One of the things that intrigued me, however, to go look at what Sean and you, James, and I are talking about is I read, before we read the transcript, I read the wire service stories. Yeah. And beauty is, again, in the eye of the beholder. When I read the wire service stories, I thought that this witness completely failed the defense. Yeah. But then when I read the transcript, it was clear it's in the middle. He did not completely fail the defense.
Indeed. We're going to let Sean respond on the other side. She hates having to hold it when we return. The prosecution scores some major points, and the talk show host scores a shameless plug. Stay with us.
The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back. On direct examination by defense attorney Tom Mesereau, Jay Leno testified about some, quote, effusive, end quote, voicemail messages from Michael Jackson's accuser. Now, on cross-examination, Assistant District Attorney Ron Zonin puts a happier face on Gavin's admiration for Leno. Here's how the jurors heard it according to the courtroom transcripts.
Were you aware that he had kind of a long association with comedians like Chris Tucker and George Lopez and had even met Adam Sandler?
Yeah, I found that out later.
Would that tend to suggest to you that he really did have a sincere appreciation of comedians?
Yes, it did.
Does that clarify, at least in your mind, to some extent, the motivation for the multiple voice messages that he left?
Yes, it became clear.
Did he ask you for money in any of those calls?
No, no one ever asked me for anything, and I'm sure of that because if they had, I would have sent something.
Did Gavin ask you to do anything in these calls other than speak with him?
I know I sent a picture and a hat and some other things. I was told by Louise that he had the picture over his bed and was thrilled to get it. So, other than that, no, I was never asked for any, financial things or anything like that.
All right, so you never had occasion to send them money. Is that correct?
No.
And he did not ask you for money. Is that right?
No, no one asked me for money.
That is the big enchilada, Sean.
You promised me last time that I could respond
yes,
to
I
what
did.
you guys said before, and I'm going to do that now. Thank you. You both said that this is the big ticket witness, and they've built all of this around this witness, and that's not true. The media has, and we have. I mean, we're live, for God's sake. But really, all that Jay Leno commanded was a line in the opening statement of Tom Mesereau, and that is what he told the Santa Barbara police. We've put all of this significance.
Well, we have more than that, because we have the cross-examination of Janet, and we have the cross-examination of Gavin, and we know that Tom Mesereau was not going to let that go because he wanted it said that they did not have conversations with Jay Leno when he knew that, according to Leno, that they had. So it's not just the opening, there's also the cross. But one of the things I have to say, because we all know that I'm a big fan of Ron Zonin's, I think that most prosecutors are not great cross-examiners because they don't get the chance.
Right,
there aren't a lot of opportunities
Sure.
for the defense to put on a case and therefore cross-examination. And he goes right to the heart of it, right to the heart of it.
In and out, and it's very, very clean. But is it enough that the money issue falls a little short and the contradictions of Mom and Gavin come through? Is that enough?
I think that's what's important, the contradictions, and I don't think the defense sold it for anything more than that.
All right, Ricky, you agree?
Well, I think that it's a disappointment, but I'll give credit to Sean where it's due, and it is here. It may be that we, the media, have made this bigger than it is in the courtroom.
You know what happens? You give credit to Sean, she just gets unbearable. Okay.
Not really.
Open up a Tinseltown phone book. Hollywood celebrities from A to Z have been mentioned almost every day in this trial. Well, actually, Z may not have been mentioned until now.
Mr. Leno, when you spoke to Gavin and his mother, did you know the family was trying to get money from various celebrities?
I'm going to object as assuming facts not in evidence and beyond the scope of cross-examination.
Sustained.
Did you know anything about any fundraisers at the Laugh Factory?
Objection. Irrelevant.
Oh.
Sustained.
No further questions.
No further questions.
Thank you. You may step down.
We have Renee Zellweger on the show tonight.
Okay, I gotta make this plain, okay? Yes, that's Jimmy Kimmel, but no, that really happened in the courtroom. He plugs his show that's going to air tonight. Come on, is that pushing it a little bit?
It's
even
who
for
he
J-Lo?
is. He's so real. He's so likable. And I'm sure the jurors loved him. And in the middle of a very serious case.
Yeah.
A really serious case about alleged child molestation, alleged false imprisonment. Sometimes humor in the courtroom is such a relief.
It is.
As I said before, Gavin wanted to be a comedian,
Yes.
so he reached out to various comedians, and so that's why Chris Tucker's on the stand now.
Yeah, and that's true, but how do you sum it up? We've got about 30 seconds left. With this witness who carried the day, defense or prosecution with Jay Leno?
I'm sorry, I think the defense carried the day. They did what they promised they would do. That's all.
I don't think the defense carried the day. It's not necessarily that it was the prosecution's day, but I think that the defense did not get what it wanted.
Perhaps they did. We've got a lot of assumptions by Jay Leno. How is that going to wash out in the end? Can't wait for Chris Tucker. Boy, that guy's really good. You got to see him.
I can't wait to see Leno tonight after
Oh, that's a wrap. Jimmy Kimmel playing Jay Leno. Where else? Right here on E! Comedian Chris Tucker also took the stand, as Sean just said. We'll have that testimony for you tomorrow. Special time, folks, 8 p.m. That's 8 p.m., folks, immediately following E! News American Idol Live.